Hello programmers, welcome back to this Introduction to Java tutorial series. Today we're going to be talking about conditionals. Now before we get started with our main lesson, I'd like for us all to reminisce about the past. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I loved playing with toy trains. One of my favorite things to do was build intricate track designs, and my favorite part, above all, of the track set was, of course, the switch track. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the switch track, it was a small part that allowed for the train to either go forward or turn depending on which way a switch that was attached to the track was turned. I thought that part was great, and coincidentally enough, it works very similarly to conditional statements in programming languages. So without further ado, let's learn about programming conditionals in Java. Go ahead and open up your IDEs. I've already opened mine, and I've created a class called train tracks. Most of this should make sense to you, at least this initial bit should for now. We'll get to this in a second. But as you can see, I've already created two variables, one called switch track and one called second switch track. I thought since we started the lesson with the reminiscing about train tracks, we might as well keep with that theme and try and simulate train tracks with this conditional tutorial. So let's learn about conditionals. Well, one of the most prevalent of them is called the if statement, and the if statement works like so. Here's the syntax for it. You first write if, and then you put a boolean statement inside of these two parentheses. What is a boolean statement? Well, it's something that evaluates to true or false. So a number of things could be boolean statements, but very simply put, a boolean variable is a boolean statement because it is either equal to true or it is equal to false. And then going on with our if statement syntax, we have an open bracket and a closing bracket. And so the way the if statement works, when the computer gets to the if statement, it checks to see if this boolean condition is true. And if that is true, anything between these two brackets will be executed. However, if it's not true, this whole chunk of code will be ignored and the computer will run on with the rest of the program. Now, some of you might be wondering what's going on here with this equals equals. Contrary to, unlike previously where we used one equal sign to assign and reassign values to variables, when we use two equal signs, what we're actually checking for is whether or not something is equal. So we're not saying that switch track is now equal to true, we're saying is switch track equal to true. We could very well also write is switch track equal to false. Either is legal. We'll get back to this equals equals because there are other operators that are similar to it that we should also learn about. But for now, let's just go back to our if statement. So if this statement is true, this is run. Right now, this statement should actually be true because switch track is false. So does false equal false? Yes, it does. So this statement is in fact true. So the program should run and print the train goes straight. Let's ignore this for now. Actually, we can delete it. And so when we run our program, we should see that it prints the train goes straight. Now let's talk about some other conditionals similar to if, but not exactly if. One, of course, being else if. Else if. But in order to understand else if, we're going to first need to write another if statement. So let's write if second switch track equals true. And why don't we print the same message again? So if this second switch track equals true, then print the train goes straight again. So as you can see, the program came here, determined that yes, this statement is correct, this is true, then printed the train goes straight, came to this if statement and said, yes, this is true, so it printed the train goes straight again. Now, if I change this if statement into an else if statement, what you'll see is that second statement right here is not executed. The print is not executed. Now, why is that? Because this condition is still true. Well, when we use else if, what happens is if this first if statement is correct, it ignores the else if. It will only go to the else if this right here is false, and so this statement doesn't run. Then it will skip over to the else if and run this and see if this is true. And if neither of them are true, we have a third statement that we can use, which is just called else. And we don't need to put any sort of boolean statement into else, because else only runs when all the other conditions have not been met. So if everything else fails, else will go. So let's type in system.out.print line the else the train turn. Now, in order to test out this else statement, what I need to do is make this else if and this if statement not run. So we need to somehow make these two Boolean statements false. Now, an easy way would be to just switch this false value to true and this true value to false, so that they would both evaluate to be false. But this would be a good opportunity to learn about another operator that we have in Java, which is called not. So in order to use not, we need to first write an exclamation mark and then an equal sign. So what does this mean? Well, basically, it's the same as the equals, but it's really just saying if it's not equal to. So it's the same as equals, but it's the opposite. It works similarly in that it checks whether two things are the same, but if they are the same, it will return false. If they are not the same, it will return true. So it does the opposite of the equals, but it's kind of similar. So now that we've changed these to nots, we should see that both of these evaluate to false, so this else will run right here. The train turned, as you can see. Now let's get rid of this not equals and go back to equals, and equals. And now let's learn about a couple remaining operators. So two to keep in mind of, and I'm going to put these into a comment, are the OR operator. So OR looks like this. It's just two vertical bars. And then there is and is just two and signs. There we go. So here's OR, here's and. And here's how these two operators work. So if I have two conditions, let's get rid of this stuff right here. If I have two conditions, like for example, if switch track equals false, let's try learning about OR first. Or second, switch track equals true. We should see that the train goes straight is printed to the console. Just like that. Now, how exactly does the OR operator work? Well, it's very simple. If the statement on the left is true, then the OR is automatically true. It doesn't need to check anything else. If the statement on the left is false, but the statement on the right is true, then the entire statement is still true. If both statements are true, then the entire statement is true. There is only one case when using an OR in which the entire statement can be false, and that is if the left is true and if the right is true. So, if I change this to true, which should make this statement right here false, and if I change this to false, which should make this statement false, then we should see that nothing occurs. Ta-da! But if we change only one of them to true, then we see that the OR statement runs. And is somewhat similar, but it's more exclusive. So with and, in order for the statement to run for the entire statement to be equivalent to true, both need to have the same value. Both need to have a true value. So if the statement on the left is true, but the statement on the right is not true, then the and is false. If the statement on the right is true, but the statement on the left is not true, the and is false. If they're both false, then the and is false. Only when both the left and the right are true does the and give a overall true output. So let's go ahead and test that. Let's make both of them true. So switch track equals false. Yes, that is correct. Second switch track equals false. Now we want that to be true for now. Okay, let's run it. We should see that since both of these are correct, the statement was printed. However, if we make one of these wrong, just like that, nothing happens. And if we make both of them wrong, we will also see that nothing happens. And so that is how and works, how or works, how not works, and how equals work. And I hope that from this tutorial you've gotten a fundamental understanding of how if else, and else work, and have a general understanding of conditionals in Java. Thank you for watching.